Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. This month I'm finishing my degree, and so this will be one of my last videos as a member of the student team, which makes me deeply sad because I have loved this role so much, and I've loved creating videos about student life, student experience, tips for studying, study abroad, all that good stuff. So I thought that it would be quite fitting today to reflect on my final year essays and talk about why they're so special to me. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start from the beginning of final year, work my way up to the last essay I ever wrote, which I'm still writing right now, and give you a bit of an overview of it all. So in semester 1 of final year, I did a history module entitled The United States South from Plantation to NASCAR. And it was the only history module that I did this year, and it was amazing. I have a blog coming up ranking all my university modules. It took me so long to write. And this one is up there with the top modules that I've ever done, because it was just so insightful, so interesting, really fruitful discussions in class, and I got to write 2 amazing essays, 2,500 word essays, and the first of those was titled Two Sides of a Violent Coin, Black and White Womanhood in the Antebellum South. And I came up with that title based on the question, how did slavery and enslavement shape the experiences of women in the antebellum South? I had so much fun writing this essay, and I'm really proud of it. I don't ordinarily share grades on my social media and stuff because it can be quite detrimental to other people, but this is an exception because honestly I'm just so proud of this essay and how well I did in it. I can say with some confidence, though I haven't got my dissertation or my final 2 essay grades back yet, obviously I haven't submitted them. I think it will be my highest marked essay at UOB, submitted to UOB, because I got 78, which is a high first. And yeah, stonkingly positive feedback, and I nearly fell off my chair when I opened it and saw that that was the grade I got, considering that in my first year I scraped a 2-2 in the first ever history module that I did. It really just shows kind of my growth as a writer and as a young scholar. Yeah, so I'm pretty freaking happy with that. The second essay that I wrote in that module is titled Dismantling the Binary of De Jure and De Facto Segregation, the National Nature of Segregation in 20th Century United States. And I modelled that title based off the question, was racial segregation a national or southern phenomenon in the 20th century? And I had so much fun writing this because I was able to tackle an essay where I got to mention the civil rights movement, but in a totally different light. And I basically argued that segregation in the North was also in law and not just in principle. And yeah, and that was the last essay I wrote for that module, and it was a lot of fun. Great module altogether, good essays, got good results, and yeah, overall I was just really happy with it, and it was a great way to end my history journey, at least that part of my degree anyway. Next essay still gets me so excited months after writing it, and it's for the module Multiple Voices, New York City Poetics 1960 to 1985. And if you read my blog that's coming out soon, ranking my modules, you'll know how much I adored this. I just left every single class beaming. I loved it from start to finish. And if you get the chance to study, I would highly recommend it. This is a 4,000 word essay, and I got such fantastic feedback. Great feedback on the essay itself from my lecturer, but also from various other people. I went to AWAS and I was told there that it was publishable, that they thought I was a master's student, which is just such a nice compliment to receive. And this is the essay I used for all my sample work for my master's applications that got me into all my master's courses and also secured me 2 scholarship interviews. And in this essay, it was titled Writing on the Margins, Oppression and Protest in the Queer New York Poetics of Frank O'Hara and Audre Lorde. And I focused on O'Hara's 1964 poem Steps and Audre Lorde's Moving Out at the End of Cooperative Living, which is possibly my favourite Lorde poem, I think. And I looked at a lot of things. I looked at objection, iconoclastic presentations of the city, because I was really looking to explore the dichotomy of how marginality impacts the experience of New York and how New York as a space and place impacts the experience of being marginalised. So yeah, I was really focusing on marginality and political poetry and what makes poetry political in this essay, and I think that it will be my baby forever. I'm very proud of it, very happy with this poem, with this essay. So yeah, now I'll move to semester 2. Now semester 2, I'm going to start with my African American Freedom 20th Century Literature and Visual Culture module, which I have finished writing the essay for that now. It's a 4,000 word essay. 100% of the module is marked on this essay. And I chose the question, explore how the constraints on freedom imposed by gender, race and or class intersect, discussed with reference to 2 texts. And I formed the title, Constrained but Tangible Freedom, the Presentation of Interior and Communal Home Spaces in Gwendolyn Brooks's Poetry. And I had so much fun writing this essay. I thoroughly enjoyed writing it. As the title kind of suggests, I used the lens of interior domestic spaces as well as communal home spaces to look at how she presents constrained freedom as a result of class, race and gender. So it's really an essay preoccupied with Brooks's early career, because I focus on 3 poems from her collection A Street in Bronzeville. I focus on Sadie and Maud, A Song in the Front Yard and Kitchenette Building, one of her more famous earlier poems, I suppose. And yeah, I basically, make the case for class boundaries as attitudinal as well as physical, and consider the impact of ideas of social uplift at the time. A lot going on. But yeah, really fun essay. Hopefully it gets a mark that reflects how much work I put into it, but hey, we'll see when I graduate if it did. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed that. And now moving on to my final module, which is Modern American Poetry, and I've had 2 assignments for this one. The first of those assignments was a 1,000 word reflective writing piece that was basically to be modelled off of book reviews, like academic journal book reviews. So it's a very different type of writing that I've ever done for university, but I had a lot of fun writing it and trying something new. And for this, I focused on Frank O'Hara again, but this time a different collection of his. It was his Meditations in an Emergency collection I focused on. And the title for my review is Bruised Knees, Communism and New York, Resistance to 1950s America. And I basically, reflect on the collection Meditations in an Emergency to argue that O'Hara ultimately is a political poet, even though he often is viewed as not political, and to make the case that you can find it everywhere in his work when you start looking for it. And if you've watched my Wonderful Words poetry series on my Instagram, you might have seen my one where I read a poem from O'Hara's Meditations in an Emergency, and I strongly believe that O'Hara is a political poet. You just have to look for it to see it, I think. And once you start looking, you can't stop seeing it. And I think the Meditations in an Emergency is resisting the political climate of the red and lavender scare. Anyway, and then the second assignment for this module is a 3,000 word essay that I'm just finishing up writing as I speak. And this one is on Audre Lorde again, but again a different collection, her collection Coal. And this one, my title is Female Relationships in Audre Lorde's Coal, the Complexities of Loss and Gain. So I'm doing a bit of a broader look at her work And so this essay, I'm looking at her relationship with her mother, her relationship with female friends, and her relationship with women romantically. You know, just to show how her relationships with women highlight the multiplicity of Lord's identity and, you know, as the title suggests, the complexities of loss and gain in the collection generally. And I'm looking at a real array of poems, you know, such as Anniversary, Martha, Memorial 1 and 2, Storybooks on a Kitchen Table, Now That I Am Forever with Child, various other ones from the collection, kind of a real overview of the collection. I really hope I do it justice. And yeah, I think it's quite fitting that my last ever essay I get to talk a fair bit about lesbianism, because queerness and marginality, as you can probably tell, is something that I care deeply about in my personal life and I care deeply about in my academic work, and it's kind of what I want to pursue. And I'll come back to that, but it continues in my dissertation as well, which is what I'm going to talk about now. And my dissertation is the only compulsory module this year that I had. 12,000 words later, it is finished, and I'm so proud of the result. I'm so proud of myself. I worked so hard on it, and it is titled A Tribute to the Potentiality of Sadness, Trauma and Despair in Billy Ray Belcourt's This Wound is a World. And This Wound is a World is a poetry collection published in 2017 by Drift Parkery author Billy Ray Belcourt. So yeah, I was really excited to explore Indigenous poetry for my dissertation, and it formed into this, and I get to explore queerness and indigeneity, trauma, despair, joy. It's all in there, and reflecting upon all of the things that I've wrote this year, essays, dissertation, reflective word pieces. I got to write about women in every single one of them apart from my 1,000-word piece, but in that I got to talk about queerness, and I actually talked about queerness in most of my essays and marginality in most of my essays, omitting just a couple. And in those I got to talk about racial inequality, marginality in terms of race, people of colour, colonised people, indigeneity. So all the things that I care deeply about, I got to talk about in every single one of my essays, and that just feels pretty freaking cool. And you know, my deepest love in life is poetry, and my history essays aside, I wrote about poetry in every single essay. Obviously I couldn't for the history ones, but all of my other modules that were literature based, I focused on poetry. And the best thing about all of that is obviously I got to write about things I care about, and I got to kind of showcase a little bit of my personality in my work too, and you know, it speaks to the kind of person I am and how deeply I believe in, you know, equality and standing up for marginalised people and, you know, uplifting marginalised voices. It also shows how far I've come as an academic. You know, there's a clear area of academia that I love, and you know, it's poetry, it's marginalisation, it's the presentation of place and space, and hopefully I'm going to be able to continue to pursue that in some way, shape or form. So yeah, that just makes me really chuffed, to be honest. So I hope that you liked this essay. I've talked about essays too long. I hope that you liked this video. Hopefully it was useful in some way to give you some inspiration for your own work, inspiration for what modules you might want to do in the future. And you know, just to say that it's pretty cool, isn't it, to look back when your degree is finishing and reflect on the kind of person that it's made you and the kind of work that you've produced. And I'm really proud of the work I've produced this year, and hopefully you all will be too, or you will be when you reach final year and you'll know a little bit more about your passions and areas of interest. Thank you for watching, and I will see you for a couple more videos very soon. Bye.